is to anchor into this sort of universal tribal message of we are all in this together right now. Everyone is being asked to evolve into the next highest iteration of themselves. And we don't exactly know what the environment is going to look like. And your tolerance for being able to operate in very ambiguous, unknown environments, the more you can expand and grow that muscle, the more it will serve you. Because the truth is, it's really scary. It's scary to be out there in the unknown. And you know the other thing, when you've been in the business for a while and you've grown up in your career and you're 20, 30 years deep, the likelihood is that you're probably really good at what you do. And when you're really good at this thing that you do, all the rewards come from continuing to do the thing you're really good at. Rewards from the external world, but also the intrinsic rewards of like, it feels good when I do things that I'm good at. But the leader of the future is someone who continually steps into the unknown, doing things they've never done before. And guess what? When you do those things, you're not going to be as good as what you've been doing for the last 25 years. So now you're out here feeling uncomfortable and making mistakes and risking, looking foolish, and risking situations where maybe people who report to you, who are 10, 20, 30 years younger than you, have it more figured out than you. All of that is going on. And your capacity to have enough humility and to tolerate the ambiguity serves you in this moment in time.
So the next question is, if organizations have and continue to succeed operating in this hierarchical structure, so will that mode of working ever go away, you think? I might be, in the mode of if you can't break it, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
It's a great question. There's lots of organizations that are driven by fear and intimidation that ultimately produce results. I personally don't believe it's sustainable. And it's also a matter of how fast can your organization adapt and change to the changing marketplace. So while it's maybe worked in the past, I don't know that that will work in the future. With that being said, I am not suggesting that we're in a situation where we have to blow up hierarchy. Again, most of the clients I work with, NASA is not blowing up their org chart. But we have to recognize that, and I wrote this down, individual leadership behaviors are what break down hierarchy and bureaucracy. I don't have to sit back and think, this is outside of my control, we're never going away from hierarchy. It's my behaviors. And while I can't control everyone else on the finance department, how they lead, I control how I lead. And I'm gonna set a precedent with my culture, and you know what will happen? Word's gonna spread. And you will become a magnet for attracting the best talent, and I believe that will be true for organizations, and it is my mission to help individual leaders and organizations do that work. Brené Brown has, I think, just an absolutely fabulous definition of spirituality. And there's many good ones out there, but her definition is spirituality is recognizing and celebrating that we are inextricably connected to one another and to a power or a source greater than ourselves. And that connection, that our connection to each other and to something larger than us is rooted in love and belonging. And that when we practice spirituality, when we practice leading from a place of spirit, it fills us and those around us with more purpose, more meaning, and more perspective. What I want you to do is I want you to think about in your own life, when was the last time you felt deeply connected to something larger than yourself? And what I'd love for you to do is, I want you to jot down in the chat box, where were you? What were you doing? And I don't want you to have to write a long statement, but just when was the last time you felt deeply connected to something larger than yourself? Where were you? Oh, wow. Somebody wrote now. That's amazing. Beautiful. In nature. Wow, they're coming in so fast. Through prayer. Beautiful. Giving birth. Amazing. Beautiful. In Yellowstone Park. Right? Nature, right? Nature oftentimes makes us feel that connection, right? To something much, much larger than ourselves. These are amazing. It's been a long time. I know. Watching others grow, beautiful. The Stoics were classic at being able to say, I'm not going to just accept what is, I'm going to love what is. Now, that is the ultimate challenge. Can we sit in this pandemic? Can we sit in the lockdown? Can we sit in the impact to what's happening to our businesses and not simply accept it, but to love it? Can I sit here alone in this studio and say, instead of thinking that the pandemic was the worst thing that ever happened to me in my business, that it was actually the greatest thing that ever happened to my business? This is very difficult. I know, Andrea, I know. It's the most difficult. It's the most difficult to not just accept, but to love it. That this right now, this is actually helping me evolve into the next highest iteration of myself. This is forcing me to transform. This is forcing us to reimagine and reevaluate what the spa experience is. Gratitude begins when, that's a beautiful statement. Gratitude begins when entitlement ends. You're absolutely right. You know, there's so many things that we feel we've been entitled to. And it's like you let that go and you shift into a space of appreciation. Can I show gratitude for everything that's happened? As lonely and as sometimes disconnecting as it feels to be communicating to you through this camera, it's like, how do I shift my perspective and say, maybe this is helping me become a better teacher. It's forcing me to level up my game. Like, if I'm really honest, did I use my energy and the bigness of a stage and video and PowerPoint to sort of overcome the ability to do what? To simply sit and have a conversation? Can I bring my full presence enough through the camera that you and I can have this dialogue and have it be impactful? And you know what? I'm better today than I was 6 months ago, and hopefully if I keep working, I'll be better 6 months and 6 years from now. And that is playing out for you in the business too. This is forcing you to level up in places. And so can I say, Amore Vedi, I love it. I love it. Give me more. I don't just accept it, I love it. We're almost 2 years into one of the greatest experiments ever experienced in the world of work. And while we've all shared in the heartache and the hardship and the loss, different companies and different industries have experienced the pandemic in totally unique ways. Now, some of our collective clients, they never really skipped a beat. And for others, they haven't been back in their offices since March of 2020. In fact, I have heard stories of Valentine's Day candy still sitting on people's desks. And while it's been challenging, maybe even gut-wrenching at times, as someone who studies the future of work, the pandemic has been this incredible accelerator of many of the trends that we've been tracking over the past decade. In fact, after the past year of being in the trenches with clients grappling with their return to the office and designing new ways of work in our post-COVID, or maybe it'll need to be with COVID world of work, there are 3 big lessons that I've learned that I think may give you some perspective and support you and your clients on their journey into this new future of work. Lesson number 1, there actually isn't a future of work. There are only futures of work. If I've learned anything from supporting so many organizations think through their return to the office and new ways of working, it's that there is no one blueprint. For instance, PwC just announced on October 1st that 40,000 of their US-based service employees will now be able to work virtually anywhere in the US. This is massive. This is the first of the big 4 to make an announcement like this. Now, on the other hand, we have Jamie Dimon from Chase and many of the other Wall Street banks who have essentially said to their employees, you need to get your butts back to the office, like period, full stop. We're an in-person firm. Now, who's right? It's a tough question. I would argue that both are right if it supports what they're trying to accomplish. You see, to blaze your own future of work, it requires you to have two things. You have to have insight on who you are, and you have to have clarity on where you're going. This is about vision and values. You need to be able to say, this is where we're going, right? And this is what we believe. And based on those things, you design work to fit that. So who wins the war for talent? You know what? I don't know, but we will absolutely track it and see how it all shakes out in the year ahead. Now, lesson number 2 is new skills are emerging, but human skills matter most, right? As advanced automation and artificial intelligence continue to remove all of that low value, repetitive task from more and more white collar professions, understandably, people are getting anxious to know how they can future-proof themselves. They're seeing, right, the external change is happening faster than maybe they are and worried about being rendered irrelevant. And I will tell you, after thousands of interviews and time with hundreds of companies, the top skills that they're developing amongst their people, they've started to emerge. And I think the headline would be this: for people to give them some peace of mind is to really think in terms of what can I uniquely do as a human that machines can't? And they sort of fall into 3 buckets. I think about them in terms of social skills, cognitive skills, and process skills. Social skills, this is EQ, this is emotional intelligence, this is empathy, especially in our virtual environment. Can I drop in, be present, and really feel what you're going through, especially with all of the mental health and personal well-being challenges? Cognitive skills, this is creativity, imagination. The human imagination can outpower machines at this point. And process skills, this is about learning agility. How fast can I keep learning? Lesson number 3, the future is flexible. Listen, the people have spoken, and I think what it really distills down to is this: they want to be treated like adults. Right? 70% of people say they want hybrid. 40% of people say that they will leave their organization if they ask them to come back full time. 65% of U.S. employees are looking for new jobs. Right? We've heard the term, the Great Resignation. Many people got a taste of what it was like to live their life minus the 2 to 3 hour commute, and they're unwilling to go back. I saw it in our qualitative research over and over. This sentiment that essentially was someone saying this: you can trust me to do the right thing. Right? Empower me to know when I can do my best work from home and when I need to be together in person with my team. I don't need you watching over my shoulder to ensure that I get the job done. Trust me to do the right thing. Now, trust, that's hard. That's cultural elements. And the challenge for leaders and organizations is that true flexibility at scale is hard. Right? We still need systems and process and structure. It's complex, but it doesn't have to be confusing. So to help support flexibility at scale, I'll just give you 2 thoughts. 1, we've got to encourage, both for ourselves and our teams and the clients we're supporting, we've got to push decision-making down to the team and manager level. Managers, if you've been given that power, you have to invite people, invite your team into the process. And I'm seeing the best world-class organizations, they're pushing that autonomy, that decision-making ability down to the manager level. But there's a second component, and that is everybody needs some guidance. The best organizations are helping their leaders design plans with real guidance and real frameworks to think through how you create great virtual and hybrid teams. So again, 3 big lessons learned over the past year of helping our clients. There is no one single future of work. There are the futures of work. Human skills matter most, and the future is flexible. Gang, my name is Seth Mattison. We're on the edge watching the future of work. I just want you to remember the future is what we make it. We're not bystanders, we're not victims. We get to create, we get to contribute our note, and hopefully with a little bit of effort, we'll create a more human-centered and heart-led world of work. The list of disruptive shockwaves to our current economic system is long, from clogged ports, manufacturing woes, supply chain kinks, and of course, labor shortages. As we enter the holiday season, everyone is feeling the effects. Speaking of which, have you purchased your Christmas presents yet? And while some of these factors will, of course, eventually work themselves out and return back to normal, others have forever been transformed. One of those is the American worker. And in this week's episode of The Future of Work, we'll talk about what's changed, how they're evolving, what happens next, and what you can do as a leader. Let's get into it. By now, you've heard the term the Great Resignation, coined earlier this year by Anthony Klautz, an associate professor of management at Texas A&M. We thought we saw the peak of people leaving in April, but then more people left in May. and then more still over the summer, and then 4.3 million people in August. And as we turn the corner into the fall and government support concludes, we still see more people submitting resignation letters, texting their bosses, or simply not showing up. At first, these actions made sense. Healthcare concerns, childcare issues, offsetting rising costs of living, a genuine resentment for the perils of service work, migrations to new cities. At some point, though, many leaders assumed that the music would stop and folks would find a chair. But unbeknownst to leaders, workers appear to no longer be playing the game. Overworked and underpaid, they've essentially taken their chairs and they've gone home. But how can people just stop playing, you might think? How are they paying their bills? Is everyone just living at home with their parents or off government support? The answer, I think, is more nuanced. While some of the former may be true, a larger transformation is occurring, a more fundamental shift in the fabric of society and the economy at large, one in which money alone will not solve the problem. And over the past 6 months, wages of leisure and hospitality workers has actually risen at an annual rate of 18%. Now, they are now well above the pre-pandemic trend we saw around wage, and yet people still aren't staying. So what is happening? From my vantage point, I think what we're seeing is a situation where individuals who are supported by a convergence of new technologies and digital economies and accelerated by a reevaluation of individual values and priorities, the American worker has essentially risen up and is rocking the system. And the shockwaves are finally being felt. Listen, side hustles, the gig economy, Airbnb, Uber, crypto, NFTs, social media influencers, and yes, we can even say it, OnlyFans, with its 1 million content creators and top earners taking home 8 figures a month. They are all creating new income producing opportunities. And we haven't even seen the impact the metaverse will have on new job creation. Right? All of these add up to millions of individuals harnessing the power of digital, leveraging the pandemic pause to create something new for themselves. I think we're seeing the birth of a new kind of economy, one in which the kings and queens may in fact be the people, or at least more of the people. So what do we do about it? As leaders, owner-operators, I think we have to understand that the experiences that we create for our people have never mattered more. Purpose, meaning, connection, opportunities for growth and expansion, mental health and well-being support will all need to be curated to attract and retain the best talent. A question to consider: what's one new employee experience you plan to implement or bolster in 2022 to keep your top talent playing the game? Because make no mistake about it, the game has changed. Gang, I'm Seth Mattison. Thanks for watching this week's episode of The Future of Work. Remember, the future is what we make it.